4th, 2025. This is What is HOA? What is HOA is brought to you by Zayuk. Zayuk is a company that provides a platform for associations to manage their assets. That includes budgeting, voting, reserve study management, asset management, various work orders, and it gives properties and HOA specifically, or condo associations, the tools and protocols to store your data in a location that is distributable, that is ingestible, and that is integrated across various domains that HOAs and associations deal with, including governance, such as voting or rules, includes financial management, such as operating budgets or capital reserve budgets, or for associations, your reserve studies. And Zayuk, in addition to our software platform, one mechanism we use is our reserve study inspection, specifically for associations, HOAs, and condo associations. So we come to your property, we use reality capture technology to capture your property's hygiene, to capture a survey grade level model that is actually created through NVIDIA technology. So it is actually how these AI companies have their models. You will actually get a property model that is a 3D visualization tool of your property for you, your stakeholders, such as vendors who may be interested when they bid on certain items, such as anything really: roofing, balcony changes, construction updates, electrical work, uh, sidewalk adjustments, pavement adjustments, landscaping changes. It is a tool for you to store this data so that you can distribute it more effectively and in a cost effective fashion, maintain this information. So in What is HOA, we tend to go through various current events within the HOA space, specifically in the US. So we will start with HOA communities. This is from Fox 57. Embrace flexible garage design as demand for RV compatible living grows. This is from Lake Crystal, Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the larger, has a much larger percentage of homes than other places in the north, such as the Dakotas or Idaho or Montana, when it comes to HOAs, or Wisconsin as well. Communities are adapting home design to support today's lifestyle needs: taller vehicles, flexible storage, RV compatible living. Accommodate larger SUVs, recreational gear, golf carts. Siesta Hills in Mankato, Minnesota, demonstrates how some HOAs are aligning with these changing expectations. Community centers on low maintenance living paired with amenities such as clubhouse, fitness facilities, indoor and outdoor pools, pickleball courts, walking paths, and coordinated social programming made Siesta Hills appealing. Notable feature is its emphasis on larger, more versatile garages. All completed homes included 2-stall garages with doors at least 8 feet tall, and some 3-stall garages with doors exceeding 10 feet. Added clearance provides room for taller vehicles, workshop space, golf carts, and RV compatible camper vans that need to be housed indoors to meet HOA parking rules. And with new constructions, there's always a lot of questions. It's important to get those assessed and always consider that there could be issues with new construction. And there's oftentimes actual specific attorneys for construction defects such as that. And occasionally we have seen issues of that nature arise in our live stream, where a community has to take litigation against their developer for any reason. And They're actually attorneys. I'm not a lawyer, and none of this is legal advice, but there are attorneys that specialize in that domain. So you have HOA attorneys that specialize in the domain of HOA. And then I've also met several here in Southern California construction defect attorneys that specialize in handling litigation issues related to construction defects. So there might, depending on where you are and if your community has possible construction defects that you're worried about, check in your local area, your local state, municipality, and for a licensed attorney if you have any issues like that. All right. So this is from WFMI2. Homeowner hit with surprise HOA lien after 4 years. And we've been through a few of these issues where a homeowner is hit with a lien after several years of not understanding that they had dues or assessments. Tanisha Robertson, her husband, bought home in 2019. Closing process was smooth, paperwork complete. And I think we spoke about this, but in October 2023, that's 4 years later, unexpected letter landed, told me I owed a certain amount, and if I didn't pay, they would put a lien on my home. And you would hope that your real estate agent would explain this to you. It's difficult to understand especially first-time home buyers, but really, even if you're a second-time home buyer, understanding the purchasing process, and especially if you've never been in HOA or never been involved in one, understanding the HOA in and of itself is not obvious. So, it's a little shocking. It took 4 years for a bill to come in. And apparently she told her real estate agent she didn't want to purchase a home in an HOA. $4,000 in dues and fines. Revealed the community did in fact have an HOA. It simply had been inactive. Legally permitted to pursue back dues. But the deed error should have been caught by the closing attorney and both real estate agents. And this case highlights the challenges of relying solely on seller disclosures. While the deed stated to the best of the seller's knowledge there was no HOA, no direct verification of public records had been done. A step attorneys say should have never been skipped. Yes, that's a difficult situation. This is from WUWF. That's 3 U's right there. Based out of Florida. Florida legislators considering the elimination of homeowners associations. New poll shows that 80% of residents approve of having an HOA. And I've heard this from many people. People want to actually be involved in their HOA. It's just difficult. And Zayu gives you a platform to handle that, but also the reason that an HOA is necessary in and of itself, and it's not just a community with it actually has financial implications, is because of the asset maintenance. There are some governance items as well, but those usually come down to asset maintenance. A lot of things kind of like, can you put a flagpole in your property? Can you build a new structure in your property? Can you do exterior renovations on your property? These types of things, for some buildings are absolutely necessary, because if you have a high rise and there's no governance structure and someone does something to their HOA, that could one, just many different issues could arise if there's no set of procedures and governance standards to manage that process and to manage what is actually going on. And it could be at huge cost to the entire property. But with that being said, people like concept, but they want it simpler and they want it well done in a high transparency rate. And in 2025, if there's one thing that we're saying, it's that you can't move away from transparency. We're in a state of hyper transparency. I know people don't like it. I know people don't even like the word. It's unfortunately the reality which we live in, where there is nothing that can really be put in the shadows for too long. And HOAs are an industry where you see it is difficult when no one owns something. When everyone owns something, no one owns something. I believe that's a. Let me just Google that. Tragedy of the commons. And so one thing you can do for your commons is give them a profile to automate themselves and give people, including your managers, the one thing that people want to do with their property, and Zayuk does, and we do it very well, is give your property and your assets a profile, giving you a direct line of connection to your asset balances. This is gravely important. We go through many times where just the simple financial documents have been altered. And in 2025, you should have, as a property, your board wants to verify the balances. They don't necessarily need to have the need to pay, but it is important at this point to not just get these altered financial, Excel sheets, but straight to the source numbers, where there's no, then that's what Zayik does. We just give you the account balances refreshed and your transactions refreshed every day, and you can choose the permission set which you want to show those. So if you want your entire general set of owners to get every transaction every single day, you can do that. If you only want your board to view your transactions, you can do that. If you're a management company and you would just like it yourself, you can also do that. We have a permission set of all actions, whether that be handling financial accounts, whether that be viewing financial accounts, that you can customize to what your association or your management company needs. All right, we'll continue with a new. And this was going back to this article where 80% or so residents approve of having an HOA. It's because it's an absolute necessity to have some sort of governing body that takes in funds, distributes those funds for the maintenance of the property, and also has a set of governance rules which, defines property rights for the people on that property and defends those property rights. Very often that governing body can sometimes encroach on those rights, but that's why you have the governing documents. That's why it's important to understand the governing documents before you purchase a home, because when people purchase, it's a big deal. Usually, I mean, most people in this fashion, they're not industrial investors or institutional investors where they purchase and it's solely an investment property. They're not, looking to rent or live in there. Very often people who purchase an HOA are looking to live there. And when you purchase into a home and pay a lot of money, one of the biggest purchases of your life, and you're told you can't do something, it is a gravely distressing thing. Something you want to do, maybe if it's something you don't care about, it's not a big deal. But when you're told you can't do something on your own property that you wanted to do, whether that be a structural change or whatever that may be, it's a big deal. It's a much bigger deal than for a renter. A renter, maybe the lease is going to be terminated on the issue, and then you pack it up, or there's some sort of fine, or they wait till the end of their lease and then they leave. Whereas a homeowner, you just put down a lot of money. You had a certain expectation. With that expectation came, that's your home, and now you're being told you can't do something, it's gravely distressing for people. And so just being aware of the governance is important, but also being aware of the finances. And again, I have 3 pillars to which I speak about for understanding before purchasing into an HOA. Those pillars are asset hygiene, financial hygiene, and governance. If you can understand the profile history across those 3 domains for the property, the HOA you're considering investing in, that will be huge. Asset hygiene will relate directly to financial hygiene, and that will be important for you to understand. Okay, so the HOA dues are this much now, my mortgage is this much now, and most mortgages are not variable, but just strictly from your HOA, even if you paid off your mortgage, one thing to consider is what have the budgets been in the last 3 to 5 years? What are the budgets projected to be in the next 3 to 5 years? And Zayuk provides you a platform to get that information. Additionally, are there any special assessments? Have there been any special assessments in the last 3 to 5 years? What's the state of the reserves? Are there any projected asset changes, projects, roofing, balconies, foundational work, pavement, any sort of issues that are going to need to, a lot of capital is going to need to be allocated to those projects? And if so, is there enough capital in the bank now and moving forward to meet that? And very important question, because that will tell you whether or not you're going to need to pay a special assessment within the next 3 to 5 years, or the operating budgets are going to change within the next 3 to 5 years. And based off of that, you can make a sort of analysis on what your payments will be over the next 3 to 5 years. Because one insidious thing that does occur, and I know another one of my friends had an issue where they very quickly after they purchased had a special assessment, and that's an insidious deal, and it's important to understand whether or not that will occur. So that is where asset hygiene plays in, and this is why a Zayuk reality capture inspection that doubles as your reserve study inspection is so valuable. And if you're a property management company, the amount of value your company can add to your customers will be so obvious so quickly, and it is a platform for them to view and analyze their property, as well as to distribute to various vendors as well, which the vendors, when it comes to construction items, when it comes to asset degradation over years, these reserve studies come hugely into play. Okay. So we'll continue with a new current event. Homeowner Association on the eastern ridge of the city are coming out against the idea of a Kansas City Royal Stadium going on 119th and Knoll. Royals announced an affiliate of theirs bought the mortgage on the old Sprint campus, now known as Asperia. Hawthorne's View, just about a mile southeast of 119th and Knoll, and less than a 20-minute walk from the intersection. President told Fox he hopes city council members pay attention to how homeowners in the area feel about the issue. Not heard one individual be in favor of it. And they're going to have their annual meeting. I'm curious as to why they were not be in favor of it. 15 people of the neighborhood of 69 say no way. So this is an important outlet for people as well, where you have an actual structured organization that can speak on your behalf for these types of things. Because your property rights, the reason you have an HOA is to have an organized body that will defend your property rights against the city as well. There may be issues that you all face against the city and or various other organizations. We've seen data centers that have had huge pushback from specifically HOAs, and it's interesting. And it goes to energy consumption and all of these various items, pollution, delicate situations, and not simple either. These are structural changes. It's not like it's interesting with all these tech companies because they build a lot of the infrastructure for themselves, but then when it comes to the what it seems to be these scaling, I'm sorry, this is getting completely off topic. I'm going to stop. I was about to get into energy and AI companies, and this is not. I'm sorry. We'll continue with some more HOA current events. But it does come into play when these huge companies, the Magnificent Seven, are attempting to build out their AI infrastructure. A lot of these places are near residential communities, and these projects are not small. They're not that simple. And again, they consume a lot of energy. So unlike many of the other projects which these tech companies take part in, these have huge, what's a better word? It's not software, and it's not a consumer product. It's not the iPhone, it's not a Google Pixel, it's not Meta glasses, and it's not Instagram or google.com, or it's not a software, and it's not a consumer device. It's these companies are actually getting into the business of energy and infrastructure. And it's interesting because they're on such a what's the word I'm looking for? Innovative path, but real world implications such as the human beings that live there matter and are being taken into account. And having an HOA gives an organized body that is there to protect your property rights. Believe it or not, like, many people do not like HOAs, but at the end of the day, they're becoming more prevalent than ever. And that organization is there. The purpose of it is to defend the property rights of all property owners communally. And that is a difficult action to take on. So very often things happen and issues occur, and maybe the association isn't acting in the best interest of the property owners, or very often these are not professionals in the sense of business professionals. So maybe they just don't have the skills to necessarily do it either. But regardless, that entity often is in place to guard your property rights and is there to do that. And it's important to have one because it's so easy for your property rights to be trampled on as a homeowner. And when you invest a lot of money into it, you do not want your property rights being trampled on. Okay. This is by the Modesto B. Why doesn't California build more condos? How one law is in the way. Condominium, one of the most affordable housing in California to buy, is an endangered species. Construction of these units is down 90% in key urban centers from just 2 decades ago. The root cause of the condo conundrum goes unaddressed year after year in Sacramento. Meanwhile, sick of the state's high cost of living, Californians continue to move to other states. It is an exodus that is unparalleled anywhere else in the nation. Talk of affordability. State legislation passed in 2002 that was intended to motivate builders to fix construction defects has led to near certainty of litigation instead. And this goes to what we spoke about construction defect law. To avoid lawsuits, construction of new condominiums has plummeted. Given how Californians can't afford to buy single-family homes, the condo construction trade should be booming. Quote, this is from the president of the California Building Industry Association. I don't know of a condo built in California that doesn't get a defect claim on it, unquote. Quote, Right to Repair Act, unquote. As its name applies, the goal was to fix any construction problem rather than get lawyers involved. It made intuitive sense. And was a compromise among builders, insurers, and trial lawyers. SB 8100 seemingly gave builders a path to fixing a construction problem, with condo owners holding the option of litigation if they were dissatisfied. For a while, it seemed to work. Just 3 years after it passed, condo construction hit an all-time high in California. More than 8,000 condo units were construction in 2005 in LA County, but by 2022 that had plummeted to less than 1,000. What happened? The Turn Center for Housing Innovation at UC Berkeley suspects that over time, SB 800 had some unintended consequences. Gave condominium HOAs a decade to file a claim for a construction defect. So the deadline approached, the claims started rolling in, and if lawyers get involved, the outcome is typically a foregone conclusion. I've heard about this, actually. And there's one detail of it that I heard earlier. I'm not going to repeat it until I verify it through an AI tool or maybe something like that, but let's continue. Builders buy insurance. Okay, let's go. So as the deadline approached, the claims started rolling in. And if lawyers get involved, the outcome is typically a foregone conclusion. Charging contingency fees, disincentivized settlements for repair alone, often protracted litigation, high costs of discovery and trial preparation mean insurers pay substantial settlements, ultimately driving up both insurance and housing costs. Builders buy insurance to cover the costs. With court battle near certainty, there's little incentive for a builder to spend money trying to fix the defect. The greatest incentive of all is to never build the condo in the first place. And those that do get built have typically been high-end complexes, so the builders can better deal with legal costs. Wow. State Senator Steve Glazer tried to reform SB 800 last year to reduce the likelihood of lawsuits. Then SB 1470 got sent to the Judiciary Committee. It changed a lot in the Senate committee that the builders eventually flipped from being approving it to opposing it. The intent was spot on 23 years ago. It makes sense to give the builder the first crack at solving the construction problem. and for litigation to be a backstop. The lawsuits have become a near certainty as proof that the SB 800 needs some fixing of its own. All right, one thing I want to Google related to this. Yes. So it actually, believe it or not, contributes to build. So based on, I Googled SB 800 California, does it cause builders to build apartments instead of condos? Contributes to builders favoring apartments over condos because it makes condo construction more expensive and risky due to insurance costs and higher potential for litigation. Increases insurance costs, insurance encourages litigation, deters condo development, reduces supply, and rental apartments become a preferred option. Oh, so this is okay. So this is what I heard once, and now I'm Googling it, and it seems that Gemini is uh, confirming my suspicion. I Googled, can they transition out of apartments after 10 years with less or no issues? And Gemini's response, yes, significantly reduce or in some cases eliminate construction defect liability by holding an apartment building for 10 years before converting and selling units as condos. The ability to transition out of the apartment market after 10 years with fewer issues is primarily due to California's 10-year statute of repose set by Code of Civil Procedure Section 33715. Expiration. The statute of repose sets an absolute deadline of 10 years from date of substantial completion of a project for latent construction defect claims to be brought. Builder is generally immune from a lawsuit for a construction defect, regardless when the defect was discovered after this period. Critically, the specific standards and pre-litigation procedures of SB 800 do not apply to condominium conversions. This means that once the 10-year window for the original construction has passed, the primary legal mechanism used by condo associations to pursue defect claims is no longer available, and you reduce insurance costs. Legal nuances. While converting provides substantial protection after 10 years, nuances to consider. Discovery of defects. Even within the 10-year period, a separate 3-year statute of limitation generally applies from the date of a homeowner / HOA discovers or reasonably should have discovered a defect. However, after 10 years, all latent defect claims are barred. 800 does not apply to conversion, so any new defects created during the actual conversion process can still be pursued under general negligence. So it's general negligence. And I've heard this that after that, builders are choosing to build apartments, maintain them as apartments for 10 years, and then convert them to condos to avoid. I did not know about SB 800, but I heard about some sort of litigation process and nuance, and Gemini has confirmed that, yeah, it's likely SB 800 that they are avoiding here in California specifically. All right. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, you all are having a great week, Thanksgiving week. Hopefully, you're all thankful for something, thankful for family, thankful for friends, thankful for health, or whatever point you're at, and just enjoying life and enjoying the day.